Testing, testing. Give it a minute to see if anyone shows up. Okay, probably. All right, I guess we'll go on and get started. So welcome back to another Disney watch-along, and I guess the movie plan. So today we're gonna be. Hello, Anita. You're here just in time. So today we're gonna finally be taking a look at Disney's 25th animated film, and one that is also regarded as the black sheep, or if I remember correctly, probably their first box office bomb, and that is the Black Cauldron. Yes, I have the DVD. I don't have the Blu-ray that the Disney movie exclusive club released because they went out. They closed down and they went out of print. So, but this is a movie that is very divisive amongst Disney fans. Like some say it's an underrated gem. Some say it's one of Disney's worst animated films. It's very divisive. I know it's based on a book series called The Chronicles of Prydain, which I've never read, but I've heard the books are really good. But that being said, and yes, this was also the first. It was Disney's first animated film to get a PG rating. Their first PG rated film was The Black Hole from 1979. But I do remember liking this film kinda as a kid. I don't have that many fond memories of it though. So it'd be interesting to revisit this film. So let's not dilly dally, and let's go ahead and get started. So everybody ready spaghetti? Let's start. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, and play. All right, there you go. Yes, and probably a fact about this movie that I think is kind of humorous is the fact that this movie made less money in the box office than the Care Bears movie that came out the exact same year. Prydain, that's what it's called. So. Yeah, I just noticed this was the first of at least of their animated films to use that iconic logo, the one we 80s 90s kids are used to. Yeah, 2000s, but it's mostly the 80s and 90s, or at the very least, most of us who grew up with like the VHS era of movies. Yeah, we already brought up that this is the first PG film, so you don't need to say that again. I mean, the backgrounds of this look beautiful, I will say. Yeah, I noticed too. This film is shot in widescreen, just like Lady and the Tramp and Sleeping Beauty before it. Take this film over Chicken Little in the Wild. Yeah, I could definitely see that. What do you mean? Is that the Horn King? Are you talking about the actor voices this old man? Yeah, Dorbin. That's his name. Yeah, I'm starting to remind myself why I've never been the biggest fan of Taran as a protagonist. He's just so obnoxious. First film to use the clone credits since Alice in Wonderland. I don't know, I feel like Ryan from The Wild is less obnoxious than Taran. Let's just say, yeah, Back to the Future. Yeah, 1985 was just a really good year for movies. Back to the Future, Come and See, Brazil, Ran, some some animated films like Angel's Egg. Richard Rich and Ted Burton. I recognize Richard Rich. He was the guy that would later direct The Swan Princess. First film to use modern sound effects. Hmm, interesting. Yes, yeah, I'm aware of Swan Princess. Yeah, from the '90s. That was not made by Disney, but was trying to copy Disney's formula. Why is there always a forbidden forest in these fantasy movies? Like, I always thought something that's interesting. Meanwhile, at the Horn King's castle, given this, the Horn King definitely has one of the creepiest and most unsettling designs for a Disney animated villain. Like, you can't see Disney making a villain this horrific looking nowadays. First film made by Michael Eisner, Frank Wells, and Jeffrey Katzenberg. Yeah, probably not their best first start, let's just say. Oh, hey, Jess. Nice to see you show up. Yeah, John Hurt definitely has a thing for his voice in animated movies. Yeah, John Hurt's another one of those actors we've lost way too soon. Yeah, the Turbog and Firebird are both pretty intimidating, but just something about the Horn King's presence is just, you know, I already mentioned that regarding those three, so. Yeah, You already mentioned that about Chernobog and the Firebird. And here we have one of the most annoying characters in the film. Yeah, the carnivores are at least predators, so really the best way to describe Gurgi, it's like it's like if you took Gollum, give him the hair of Falcor from Neverending Story, and you make him even more obnoxious than Jar Jar Binks. Disney's third film to show blood. Yeah, Disney nowadays has this weird thing about not showing blood in their animated kids films, even though yep, the Horn King's Gwethens managed to find her. It's probably the same sound effect they used for Sharptooth, or they would later use for Sharptooth. Hmm. What's funny you mentioned the great animal, Jess, considering that Richard Rich, I guess, was one of the directors for this film, who would later do the Swan Princess. So, yep, the Horn King's castle. Villain layers really have this thing for attracting lightning, don't they? Yeah, I guess this would be Disney's first. Yeah, I guess this was Disney's first animated film to utilize CGI, since this is around the era when movies were starting to use CGI. Because then 3 years before this movie, Disney did Tron. Yeah, I know about the Fox and the Hound. We watched that last time, so okay, what's your plan now, Tarn? Use new thunder and lightning sound effects? Yeah, Disney did that a lot. When a certain film doesn't do well on their first release, they will re-release them a few years later. I mean, they did the same thing with Alice in Wonderland. Creeper. Elmer Bernstein. Yeah, this definitely sounds like the music in this film does sound like the kind of music you hear in Ghostbusters. Fantasia. Yeah. Honestly, the only character, if I remember correctly, I know it's been years since I've seen House of Mouse, but I only remember the Horned King being the only character to appear in the show. Like none of the other characters, I don't think appeared. Yeah, Todd Copper and Tantor. Yeah. Okay, what was in that water that made his eyes burn? Jeez. Oh, wrong room. At least Henwin is safe. So the voice actor of Floater is the guy who would later voice Professor Porter, huh? That's interesting to know. And we have our princess of the film, probably one of the more forgettable of the Disney princesses. Yeah, speaking of rats, Susan Sheridan, huh? I feel like I know that name somewhere, but she died in 2015, so over a decade ago. So apparently, this castle belonged to someone else before the Horn King, huh? Some corpses he has. John Musker and Ron Clements are involved with this film. Yeah, well, at least they'll be involved with much better films later on. I mean, he's right, and you need something to defend yourselves. Yeah, that'll be fun. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings? I know. Mhm. So both John Hurt and Nigel Hawthorne were in Watchmen Down and the Plague Dogs. Oh, that's interesting to know. Yeah, I guess the visuals of the film are kind of similar to the Sleeping Beauty. Maybe not to the same degree. Sleeping Beauty definitely had a more medieval tapestry look. And the sword is magic, apparently. Haley Mills was originally meant to voice I Lonely. Huh. Interesting. Yep. I never watched The Wonderful World of Disney. Of course, that was before my time, so. And there goes all their wine. I'm guessing the Black Cauldron was not really a popular film with its characters for Disneyland. Like, I mean, the Horn King I can understand, but the other characters I highly doubt it. Well, they didn't know it was magic at the time. Mhm. John Hurt is in the Tigger movie and Valiant. Huh, interesting. This film really was not a hit for critics and audiences. Treasure Planet is a different case. Like, where Treasure Planet at least got praise from audiences and critics. I mean, sadly, it's just bombed because not enough people wanted to see it. Reuse animation, this sort of. Wow, Taran, you little sexist. Yeah, that's the thing. Even though she's like a princess, we never see her kingdom or anything princessy about her. Again, I'm sure these characters are better fleshed out in the books. And this is probably a case of maybe they had different ideas for this movie, but there was a lot of studio interference. Well, Taran's just as obnoxious as your average teenager. Yeah, there's a reason she's not part of the Disney Princess lineup. She's just there's nothing about her that really that's outstanding. Same vein as Kita from Elise. Kita at least has more personality than Unlovely. I mean, in terms of its appearance and tone, I mean, yeah, Black Cauldron might be up there. I mean, I'd still argue something like Hunchback of Notre Dame is up there as one of their darkest films. I guess it's because of this movie's dark tone is part of the reason why this film was not favored by a lot of people. Well, that and also the bland characters and I don't know, just or the fact that it's not a very the not the best adaptation to the source material. Honestly, with how Disney's so obsessed with remaking their animated classics to live action, why don't they just remake this film? Because this is a movie that definitely has potential to be remade into something better. Yeah, there's also no music numbers, and I wonder if that's part of another reason why it possibly didn't do very well. But then again, if they ever try to adapt the Chronicles of Prydain books, maybe they should turn it into a TV show and not a movie. And we got these little fairies. You already mentioned that about the logo. Honestly, I always forget these fairies are characters in the movie. Probably because I don't know. I feel like they don't really contribute that much to the plot. I mean, I can believe this movie takes place in the same setting as Snow White. They both kind of feel the similar vibe. I see. Like, and I never read the books. I don't know if these fairies are characters in the stories. So there's Henwin. Reminding the fairies from Fantasia. Yeah, you already mentioned that about the Walt Disney Productions name. Six-track Dolby stereo, huh? Interesting to know. And yeah, this is the last we see of Henwin until the end of the movie. So Oh, yeah, that's more of a, huh? Very unsettling looking place. Yeah, very gloomy and scary indeed. I don't know. What was the point of looking in the drawer? You really think the cauldron would be in there? A lot of frogs. The rats from Lee and the Tramp. Jean Bob from the Swan Princess. Yeah. And there they are, the witches of Morva. Yeah. Remind me of Mad Madam Mim. Yeah. Oh jeez. Of all the places to be stuck in, huh, buddy? Yeah, I can see why this film has a PG rating now, aside from the intense, horrific imagery. It's a six-track Dolby surround soundtrack. Yeah, I believe you already mentioned that earlier. I know, right? Well, Dinosaur's PG because of its intense violence, so. But it's interesting to think about. So, Black Cauldron is the first of their animated films to get PG rated, and they wouldn't make another one until Dinosaur. So that means that every animated film they did in between these two films are G rated. Which you have to stop thinking about, given how dark some of those films get. Yeah, it's good to know regarding Mike McDonough. A sword that gets sliced through cauldrons like butter. You still have that apple gurgly, really? Yeah, there really are no music numbers in this film. Yeah, Floater sings, but doesn't really count. And they carry their house away now. Attack of the Dishes. Yeah, I guess what happens when you try to use magic on inanimate objects, they'll eventually get sentient and fight back. Yeah, yeah. I imagine this film get a lot of kids' nightmares. I mean, she's got you there. You can have the cauldron. You just can't do a darn thing about it unless one of y'all's willing to give up your life. Yeah, obviously there's differences between the film and the novels. I mean, I'm assuming it's like several books, and obviously you can't cram that many stories into 1 hour and 20-minute long movie. Which probably best if they ever decide to adapt these books again, do it as a TV show. Some help you've been. Yep, the Gwithensa found you. Yeah, I'd argue Hunchback is a little darker. Yeah, Jeffrey Katzenberg, while he may have done a few good things for Disney, he's also responsible for a lot of the really poor decisions. One of them being, yeah, re-editing and reworking the majority of this film. Yeah, and DreamWorks as well. Yes, as he summons the Cauldron, where some of his guards get killed. Okay, I think I lost connection there for a second. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Apparently, this scene was originally much darker, as we actually see one of the guards melt on screen. His flesh melts out and turns into a skeleton. Which, yeah, I think this film was almost close to getting an R rating at one point. Yeah, kind of surprised if Roger Ebert was positive towards the film, considering wasn't he negative towards Return to Oz? Completed at Burbank, California. That's interesting to know. Honestly, this is probably the most heroic thing Taran was thought of, thinking about sacrificing himself for the innocent people. And there goes the little fur ball. And with that, the cauldron's magic has been destroyed. Been destroyed before the Horn King could do anything with his undead army. You already mentioned that about the glow credits. She has those red, piercing red eyes that the king has. Yeah, I didn't notice Tinkerbell in the amongst the fairies. And yeah, goodbye to the Horn King. And also probably one of the most grisly Disney villain death scenes. So yeah, that was just rotten flesh on his body. Yep. That's like the kind of death you see in the Indiana Jones movie. And now Creeper is free. And I advise you all get out of there. Yeah, the Horn King. And there goes one of the Gwithens. I wouldn't say change of heart. He's just glad he's not dead and doesn't have to put up with the Horn King again. Yep, the castle is definitely collapsing. we've already talked about that about the PG rated, you know, and thus the Horn King is no more. Well, one of the Gorlans is still alive. And there's the Cauldron. Wait, I adore forceful men. Wasn't the line I adore aggressive men? I could have sworn that's what the line was. Unless I'm hearing things. My boy. So these witches have the power to bring back the dead, I guess? Hmm. I don't know about Jimmy Neutron. Again, I have so much planned for Hero Villains that I don't have room for every character in existence. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna try to get the next Heroes Films round out sometime this year. So yeah, and that was the Black Cauldron. I'll try to get the live action trailer some soon. So yeah, that was the Black Cauldron. Despite some of its problems, like yeah, the main characters aren't like some of Disney's better cast of characters. The Horn King does make for a very intimidating villain. It's just he doesn't really do a whole lot in the film. Like he doesn't have as much a presence as say other Disney animated baddies. And like I said, I never read the books. I'm sure the books are like a way, way better. And if any Disney animated classic does deserve to be remade, it's probably this one. I mean, I will say it's definitely one of their darker films, and I can imagine that's one of the reasons why this film wasn't a huge hit with audiences because of its darker tone. But overall, would I really call this one of Disney's worst animated films? I don't know if I'd go that far. Like, I still would take this over some of like Chicken Little or Strange World or Wish or some of their other like absolute worst. But of course, we'll get to those films later on. But even then, I'd say this film is about, I guess, average or mediocre. Like it's somewhere between a 5 or a 6 out of 10 at best, and I'm probably being generous when I give it that grade. It's got really good animation. The music score is pretty solid. But I can kind of see why this. I mean, I can at least see why this would have a cult following. I mean, it's because that '80s, like like a lot of films, especially like the vintage animated films of the '80s. But so yeah, overall, it's a it's a overall it's just kind of a decent film. Like I can understand. Yeah, The Wild I'd say was worse than this. Um, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I do remember watching this film as a kid. I never owned the VHS. I just saw it whenever they showed it on Toon Disney during their movie evenings or whatever. But yeah, I guess we're gonna end the stream here. Hope you all enjoyed this and looking back at one of Disney's weaker films. Next time will be a much better, more fun film as we have a little mystery and yeah, I guess we're returning to London in the next Disney classic. So take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. So later.